a
Hey,
yoga.
Kevin. All right, I am going to wish you guys a wonderful class and see you later. And leave everything with the rabbi and Stephanie in charge because that
Yep.
means it'll run really well.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good. See you, Dave.
Bye.
See ya.
Do I need to, okay, do I need to, well, I guess it's easier if I put stuff in the chat, all the material that I sent everybody, from there. But in a minute, first we're gonna, and I know this works. I've done it before. We're gonna watch the movie, the cute little cartoon called Lights, which I've shown every year, and this has been a big experiment to try to do this online rather than in person. It's great in person. Maybe we should, maybe we will, but for now, this is where we are. So, okay, all right, so I got everything there. Let's see, let's just put everything in there. That's too many things, though. Okay, let's see here. Let's do it this way. All right. Okay, so, hang on a second. Maybe I could start the movie and that will save you some time. While I'm doing cutting and pasting and other things, but okay. First article is Rabbi Halfon Hanukkah for adults. Don't worry, it's not there yet. And then we're gonna do oh gosh, let's do the Hellenism test and test answers. Looks like we got two JTs there. And okay, okay, so go to the chat and download those articles, even though I already sent them to you guys. I'll send them anyway. I mean, I'm putting it up there anyway, so we got it. One more for now. Okay, some songs. Let's do some Hanukkah songs. Okay, so I know that this sounds weird because I've been talking and we've been recording. Now I'm officially starting. And we have almost everybody here. We have DT and JT. Yeah, you guys are the main people. I guess Rick, I haven't seen Rick well, I saw Rick the other day, but I hope he'll pop in. Tonight's session is very pivotal. And just to give you a sense of what we're going to do tonight, where we're going, the goal is, and every year I do it, it's a little different, but we will be concluding this portion of your broadcast is brought to you by Greece and Rome, or the rabbis. We're going to hopefully be able to conclude on our last session before vacation, December 17, so we have tonight, even though last week we did a lot of material, I mean, covering almost the entire period of the Greco-Roman, what the secular world would call the Greco-Roman, what I would call, and what our Jewish studies people call the rabbinic period. Remember, the rabbinic period extends from either 500 to 500 or 400 to 400, however it's easiest for you to remember it. But it's basically from the end of, yes, really the destruction of the first temple and the Babylonian exile, but then the return, once we return to build the second temple, and Ezra and Nehemiah, I say Nehemiah instead of Nehemiah, Ezra and Nehemiah kind of bring back this ragtag group of people to Judea, meet up with the people who were there, who had pretty much assimilated or married into the tribes around them, and they begin to rebuild the now what we would call the Judaic religion. Um, and talked about that a lot last week. And I suggested that in some ways, this is not radical, that Ezra may even be more important than Moses in terms of actually creating this, what we know as Judaism in the general sense. Everything before that I've suggested is the Israelite religion or the Judean religion, the religion of sacrifices uh, and the Torah laws and so on. Now, there was a temple and there were sacrifices during the Second Temple period, but I said this as a joke last time. Um, you know, Charlie or, Shmuel, what are you doing on Shabbat? I'm going to go to the temple. What do you get to do there? We get to watch, up from the 32nd row as the Kohanim come in, the Levites sing. And well, what do you get to do? We watch and we listen, Shema Yisrael, that's where it came from. The idea of chanting the Shema comes from the Second Temple period. Well, then Shmuel asks Chaim, or whatever his name is, Moshe, what do you do on Shabbat? I go to Rabbi Hillel's house or Rabbi Shammai's house. And what do you do there? Well, we study Torah, we debate, we discuss, we have some prayers. And then sometimes every once in a while, there's a kid who joins the community. And that was how the bar mitzvah became a reality, although not until the 13th century, really, was it an actual ceremony. But anyway, I talked about this whole idea that, and this is what we're going to get to, is everything that happens in that period molds us, creates this people that we now call the Jews, out of a series of hardships. Now, if you remember, and don't worry, Jessica, I didn't miss that much, but everybody remembers, I always talk about living in two civilizations. This is not unique, it's not radical. Reconstructionist, although Kaplan came up with the idea, is we, the Jewish people, always seem to be living in our own civilization and then the dominant surrounding civilization. And those things impinge on each other. We absorb things from the dominant civilization or the conqueror, if you will. And then also we bring things to that civilization. And we argue with them and we have problems with them and so on. But we, at the same time that's happening, we're also evolving. And prepare yourselves, because this is what happens in Spain, living under Iberia, Spain, Portugal. And this is what happens in Germany and then Poland and Russia. And this is what happens today in America and other places, South America as well. Whatever we become, we adapt to the surrounding civilization, even though we might call ourselves a religion. We're unique, we're different, we do things our own way, but we still, kind of come up with ways of adapting. Now, this is what the rubber hits the road, is this event of encountering the Greek civilization sets the ball in motion, sets this up. Yeah, you could argue, yes, we also were in dialogue or lived under Egyptian hegemony and Babylonian hegemony, and that's true, but in an earlier period. This marks the first time the Hellenistic incursion, and we'll start the film so we can enjoy watching the cartoon instead of me. This marks the first time in our understanding of our history, whether it's true or not. It just happens that it feels to us as this is the first time that we are invaded culturally by a group. Under Egypt, well, okay, slavery. Under Babylonia, some kind of exile. But we're living in this period, Judeans are living in our own land, and here come these folks. Now, the fact that we make a big deal out of these 200 years or so of the Greek incursion, the Greek invasion, is largely because of remembering it with the Hanukkah story. And you'll also see this is a trend that I hope I'm not giving you too much to think about. things, holidays, celebrations, um, rituals take on new meaning. I hope you're recording this or you hear it. These rituals that we do take on new meaning in the next or several civilizations or oppressions. And we're always talking about the Pharaoh, slavery. Guess what? This Passover celebration became a reality, became a ritual during the Roman period, right? So we're sitting there talking about the Pharaoh did this, the Pharaoh did this. Hey, watch out for the Romans, In the same way, we talk about Antiochus, that's the king that ruled in Syria. But we always remember other times. And the fact that, this is the fate of our people, that we've lived under all these different dominant groups. Like I said, the Iberian, Spanish, Portuguese civilization, Germans, Russians, Poles, and now America. We interact with them. Okay, let's start the movie. Let me see if I can just do this. I sent it to you all. Did I sent lights to you all? I'm going to go to the internet, and the great thing about this is in the old days, not old days, but like 25 years ago, I would have to rent these movies, and a lot of the movies I used to rent are now available on YouTube. So here we go. Lights. Hanukkah movie. There are a number of fun and not so fun, but really good movies about Hanukkah that you can watch. And if you go to the page, I'll just hit share screen right now so you see what I'm doing. You all there? Everybody okay? All right, share screen. I just went to the internet. I mean, I keep it around, but I went. So I hit the search button for Lights Hanukkah movie. But before I get to that, here's YouTube. Look at all these other movies down here. Love Lights and Hanukkah from 2020. It's cute. It's funny. I don't know. It's about a family and trying to celebrate Hanukkah. And there's other movies. The Feast of Lights is a cute one. It's pretty good. Many of them are Hallmark movies, right? They're, things like that. Here's, where's this one? I got to get you guys out of the way. Hanukkah for Kids. The meaning of the Rugrats Hanukkah. I'll say, so there's a bunch of them. All right, so there's the Hallmark special. And here's Adam Sandler, the Hanukkah song. It's not the best song, frankly. And there's also very good Chabad and other Orthodox groups. Here's one, an Orthodox, how Hanukkah is celebrated among Sephardic Jews. But let me go back to Lights. Okay, so Lights it came out in 84, 83. Here it is, and it's still good. Hang on, let me get it's still good. It's a cartoon. And I don't want to give it away except to tell you that what I liked about it was at the time was Paul Michael Glaser, who was the original Starsky of Starsky and Hutch, is a main character. Judd Hirsch is the narrator, and Leonard Nimoy is the other lead character. So Leonard Nimoy, good old Leonard. All Jewish folks, of course. All right, so here we go. And so it's called Lights for a reason, and you'll see why. And let me know if it works okay. I mean, if you can hear it at the same time as volume up. And it's a little blurry, I know.
The Festival of Lights. It's all about something that happened a long, long time ago.
Oh, from CC. I wonder if I can. Yes, there's the CC. And this is, of course, Israel centric. So it's published by Israelis. So that's Jerusalem, of course. Yeah, it's a little blurry. I can't help it. Well, you can watch it on your own too.
And for one, just don't get your feet wet. Okay, Ernie? Please?
Yeah, before it all happened, there wasn't any festival of lights yet, and life went on in Jerusalem more or less the way it always had.
Hey, Miriam.
You could say that the story really started the day the lights first came down to earth. It was far away at a mountain called Sinai. Years went by, and the strange light made itself right at home in Jerusalem. It seemed that the lights always had something new to tell.
Now that light is the letter Aleph,
It's for other
in
people,
case you didn't realize it.
like stopping for a
Supposed to be,
stranger who could use some
mystical.
help.
By the way, I don't know if you're muted. If you need to unmute, you can. But let's save the questions.
That's the
Just
way it
me
was
making
then.
comments all the
The
time.
lights were sparkling, speaking everywhere. So they made a special place for the lights in a golden tree with 7 branches called the menorah.
7 branches. Notice that. Yeah.
Then one day, ships came over the sea. Alexander the Great and the armies of Greece set out to unite the whole world. They found the Persians first. Soon, more Persians left to fight. And Alexander remembered Jerusalem had been part of the Persian Empire. Jerusalem.
Little sleepy Hamlet. Little old Jerusalem. Just, just part of the Persian Empire, as you remember, because the Persia conquered Babylonia. So, nobody's, we're not bothering anybody. Wow. Pay attention to the figure, to the cartoon characters, because they keep reappearing. See if I can get out of here. Oh, sorry. I just want to clear out the chat. Oh, there we go. Oops, sorry again. Okay, so there's the high priest, right?
Alexander was fascinated by the lights. So there was no battle after all, and Alexander and the Greeks came in peace into Jerusalem. The Greeks made themselves right at home in Jerusalem. They showed the people there all kinds of new and beautiful things: sports, art, music, and a beautiful golden language.
So there's the Greek coming out of the heart, Greek letters. Whoops, just looking at the chat here. I don't know if the video is lagging, but it's a little bit blurry. Like I said, rent it on your, watch it on YouTube on your own. I'm sorry, I don't like to interrupt, but notice how the Hebrew letters and the Greek letters are dancing together. Isn't that cute?
The Greeks had brought some beautiful gifts with them to Jerusalem, and the people there were pretty enthusiastic about it all.
Now the Jewish guy tries to do
things
it.
just like the Greeks.
Yeah, right. It like looks easy.
Well, they tried. In the meantime, while everyone else was learning about the new Greek things, Alexander the Great was trying to figure out the lights. Fascinating. Hmm. Hmm.
Now that says on the menorah, "Let there be light." So it's little subtle things. I'm just calling your attention to this. That's why I say this is a cute little cartoon movie with a lot of adult layers.
Time passed. Alexander the Great was gone, and the new Greeks who ruled over Jerusalem didn't care for the lights very much.
Every time I move the chat,
And some people couldn't help thinking that things would be better if only they would try to become just like the Greeks.
Sorry. You're seeing my
You're
screen.
doing pretty well with that discus.
I really think so?
You got a lot of natural talent. Did you ever think about competing in the games? Of course, you're gonna have to look more like a discus thrower.
There we go. There we go. Get you out of the way.
Wow, wow.
Assimilation.
Clothes make the man. It's good. Very nice. Terrific. You know, I was.
No matter what he does, he cannot get rid of his little Jewish identity.
You know, there's a big party. Very important. Why don't you come along? We're on our way there right now. It'll be quite an opportunity for us to have really outstanding people to meet.
So unusual to have such a nice view.
The last time I was back, my chariot.
Oh, and did you see what he was wearing?
4 horsepower.
It was better than what she was wearing.
Takes the turns around the hills. Absolutely fabulous.
You know, you may not have given it much thought, but there are a lot of career opportunities open to someone like you. Really?
The Empire game with you, energetic like yourself, and all kinds of
Conversation. You ever consider public relations? People just don't realize how important orchestrating public opinion is in this empire. But a guy like you,
with your talent, your ability to get along with people of different backgrounds. Please. Don't get me wrong now. I'm as open-minded as the next guy. No one's ever accused me of prejudice. But there's something funny about those people. Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you.
have a real nice evening now.
Notice the technique of putting on the mask. That they don't really know what we're thinking.
Not that I've got anything personal against these people. You understand?
On the contrary, some of them are real nice guys. It's just that those flights of theirs
Make them different from everybody else. Kind of sets up a barrier between people.
sounds a bit dangerous. If it spreads, they'd be better off without those lights, wouldn't they?
Much better, and as soon as possible, too.
Get out of here. Just go home, please. Just get out of here. Just get out of here. Oh. Hi. Terrific party. Where are you guys going?
How would you like a rare opportunity to do something really important for the security of the Empire?
You need it? Hi. Good evening. Get out of here, please. No, give me a break. No.
Bad for the eyes, kids. You just hand in those lights, and we'll give you better ones.
I'd like to talk to you all about.
That was just the beginning. One by one, the lights were being stamped out.
Ding, ding, ding. La, la, la. Ding, ding, ding.
Good evening. Let's face it, ma'am. Those old lights are outdated. Nobody uses them anymore. Now, you've probably seen these. After all, the whole world is using them. They're newer and better. Yes, at home, on the job, everywhere you look. Everybody's switching to. Oh, come on, get out of here, will you? Oh, come on, give me a break. I gotta get through this. Excuse me. Come
That's a violation of the fire code.
Time for this.
Sorry.
The kid, hold on, grabs a little olive, and they throw it away.
Soon, the lights weren't safe anywhere. Hold it.
Oh, hi, Rick.
Get rid of it.
Love this guy. This character is very funny. You know, but he's real. He's a big bully, but he's stupid.
Don't touch that. He doesn't know how to talk to children. Now, why don't you kids just give me that one little light you got there, and you can have all these shiny ones instead. What do you say?
When the new rulers of Jerusalem saw that they couldn't persuade the people to give up the lights, they decided to get rid of the people instead.
If that's the way you want it.
The people fled to the hills outside the city.
Notice that a woman, an old guy.
When they returned to the city, the people found the menorah cold and empty, with no lights to fill it.
And one little kid found a little oil. Again, this is all symbolic. The light is the oil.
So every year, about the time when all these things happen, it's a festival of lights.
Just stop it and see wet. Okay?
Notice that they use the same cartoon characters, the same little boy and girl now in the future. And the high priest is now a bookseller. It's cute. Or no, the rabbi. Yeah. And Judah Maccabee is now your local gardener.
Ever since that time, there has always been a festival of lights. There's a festival of lights because people kept the light and treasured it.
All right. Judd Hirsch. I said Leonard Nimoy. Okay, let's let this off. Are you guys still there? Oh, there we are. I got to expand you. Yeah. Okay. So I apologize for the technical issues. Watch it again. Yes, that was Mr. Spock. That was Leonard Nimoy.
A lot of people
Yeah.
have that.
Huh? Who? Let's take comments. Like I said, it's a cute little cartoon. Hi. Who's that?
And tell me your name.
What's your name?
This
Huh?
is Derek.
Derek?
Derek.
Like Derek and the Dominoes?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That was the name that what's his name? Eric Clapton used to use. That's a great name, Derek. You can watch this film again with your mommy at home. So, okay. So like I said, apologizing for the technical, and it is a bit old. Rugrats is good. Yes, they're all good. So I don't want to destroy the movie, but there's a number of little interesting symbolisms that are going on. Oh, stop share. Okay. There's a number of interesting symbolisms going on. Obviously, they didn't mention a single time. They didn't mention Mattathias. They didn't mention Judah Maccabee. Isn't that great? I mean, so the movie is meant to be, the ethos, the style, the feeling, and by using the word lights and making lights a symbol for Jewish culture, Torah, strength, continuity. It kind of, the whole thing is lights. Now, as I said, there's other movies you can watch. Rugrats is good. But anybody, before I make my little comments about the movie or anything else, love the red glasses. Yes, that's a great, love the glasses. Comments on the movie, on the story, on Hanukkah, or on Hellenism. Is this new to you guys?
I liked the movie. I thought it was really cute. It was kind of sad, like seeing how they were trying to take the Jews' light away. I guess just
Right.
in all the research I've done, like in my family history, like every, solving all these mysteries of finding out we're Jewish and stuff, every time I would encounter something, I do research, and like I had family in Spain. And then all of a sudden, it's 1500 and they're not in Spain anymore.
I mean,
So
you went back that far and you were able to research that? Wow.
yeah, I found ancestors. They were some aristocratic Sephardic Jews, so they were kind of easy to trace.
Mhm.
So I was able to go back like to Spain and then Middle East before they came to Spain.
Do you know the names?
Um
Are we
the
related?
oh, maybe. Sancha
I-
de Ayala was the first one I found.
Ayala, yes.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I pronounced it wrong.
Oh,
Yeah, and then
it's the
she
same.
was
It's no big deal. Yeah.
the Del Toledos. So yeah, I guess
Del Toledo. Well, Del Toledo means of Toledo. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. The Toledo. Well, I mean, I don't want to get onto that, but we will be talking about that. But in that period, it was very common to take a name of a city. So
Okay.
Toledano is a very common Sephardic name.
Okay.
Yeah. We could be related because, well, all Jews are related, all the world is related, but they think my ancestors may have come from Toledo also.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
well,
Small world.
Ibn Khalfon was a very common Sephardic name, but let's stick
Okay.
on the topic. So you're saying that there is this line that gets broken or lost. Anybody else have a similar experience of some Jewish connection or
I want to talk to
Taylor, I should come over sometime and meet with the kids and with your mysterious husband too. I mean, I'm not being mysterious, but I mean, they don't know me that well, and they're very friendly. The other Leo, Mary's son, Leo, Mary and Josh, he used to come and give me these big hugs. So,
Oh.
I mean, I love kids, and we don't have a school yet. So, yes, Christina's point is it's a very good introduction for entry-level beginners and especially for children. So yeah, so we view it as children. We can say, oh, the big bad, the big bully, this Mongol guy comes in and and the kid's hiding the little light from him and he trips over himself. All right, I said I wasn't going to talk. Who else? Debbie, comment? Devin, Jamie, Rick? No? All right.
It was as good as it was last year.
Oh, you watched it last year too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here's what I want to point out, and then we'll look at some of the timeline, but I don't want to bore you. Okay. I want you to read again. I recommend the chapter. It's really short. I mean, and this Greek period is very short, but very impactful. In Stan Mack, it's page 55 through about 62. All right. So, one, all right, this is being recorded. So number one, and I did talk about this last week. Alexander, and kids always hear these things. The good thing about being an adult learning this is you don't have to unlearn stuff that Jewish kids typically learn. We fought a war against the Greeks, and we won, and the lights, the oil was only supposed to last for 1 day, but it lasted for 8 days, and that was a miracle, and that's why we have Hanukkah. End of story. Let's see. That's all we learned. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was too simplistic. So Philip of Macedonia, Albania today, was one of those guys who conquered areas. I told this last week, and he either took over Greece or had enough wisdom to make deals with the Greeks. So who did he bring to tutor his son, Alexander, but Aristotle? The Aristotle, all the stuff you learned in college, right? Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. Now, Greece, I don't know enough about Greek history. I forgot most of what I did know, but Greece had a tradition of not real democracy as we know it, but the word demos comes from the word for the people, but demos were the rich people. So among the rich people, it was supposed to be this learned kind of, I don't want to call it a real democracy, but the rich people, like today, were in charge. There were slaves, there were poor people, but Greece had a certain tradition. Another tradition of the Greek culture was learning. So Aristotle's tutoring little Alexander. And so Alexander grows up believing everything that's Greek is great. And when we call it Hellenism, I said this last week, but I'm repeating it. The parallel, and there's a number of parallels with American and British imperialism too. Is like they didn't really export real Greek culture. I mean, the plays, you saw the scene where they're watching a play and the women are gossiping. Look what he was wearing. It was even better than what she was wearing, and they were all wearing the little masks. So wherever the Hellenistic movement went, it brought this Greek culture with it. So Alexander, pretty much like the story says, set out to conquer the known world. He got as far as India, folks, or the borders of India. So he's going everywhere with his troops, conquering nations. But in most cases, it was like the story says, because the Persian Empire had already, we're not doing a history class, strictly speaking, but as I said, Babylonia is in charge. Babylonia is taken over by Cyrus and Darius, the Persians. The Persian Empire was quite powerful, but just can you imagine how difficult it was to maintain control over all this diversity? So the Persian Empire was falling apart. So he comes and he's smart. He has, I told you this, he has all of his generals marry Persian princesses all over the realm. Everywhere you go in that area, all the way out to, we looked at a map last week, all the way out to, Kandahar today in Pakistan was once called Alexandria. So there's 20 Alexandrias, all these cities named in his honor. All right, and the other thing that's relevant to the Jews or the Judeans is, and I don't want to call Alexander enlightened, but compared to people of that time, the king conquered you, you become the religion of the king. End of story. Caius regius, caius religius is the Latin term. And it still was around, and it still is around, right? The British in India, the British in Hawaii, the Americans, and I'll get to America and the settlers in this country too, and the Native American population. But the classic model was the king won. That means his gods are better than your gods. You got to just change your religion. Alexander didn't really care that much, and it's not clear whether that's because of the practical matter of ruling, or maybe a little bit of Greek, I don't want to call it liberalism, but practical ideas. So basically what they did was they said, look, you guys have this statue, you guys have this idol of Baal. We call Baal Zeus, right? And you have this other one of, what's her name? Oh God, Ashtoreth. We call Ashtoreth Aphrodite. And it was easy with the pagans because all you had to do was supplant their, take over their temples. Now, by the way, I'm on to the next subject. Money makes the world go around, from Cabaret, right? Money, 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 money. Where is the money? Yeah, the money's tied up in the kingdom and the treasury, but where's the real money? It's in the temples. People honor the gods of the temple. So the priests were collectors of money. So the other thing they started to do was take over the temples, take over the money. And so, but it wasn't all horrible. Another thing I mentioned, demos. Okay, so this is part of Judea too, but it happened on a broad scale. In order to be, let me put it this way, in order to get the benefits of being part of this great Greek empire, or I say Hellenistic empire, because it wasn't Greeks, remember, but in the order part of this empire, you would apply your particular city to become a polis. There's the word polis, politician, police, right? A polis meant a polis had to have Greek architecture, Greek statues, some gods and goddesses, and basically a gymnasium. Okay, a gymnasium. Right? It's not the YMCA. If you have a gymnasium, that's where guys go to work out, but that's also where the gods are. You go into the gymnasium and you make a little offering to Apollo, or for women, whatever the temple. So you didn't force it. It was cultural imperialism, and that's why in the movie you see that kind of like, oh, kids, have this, this is a better thing, better. So it took a generation, maybe two, in the cities, and this is key also. I'm sorry if I'm making this too complicated. I just don't want you to think Judah Maccabee fought against the Greeks. No, it's not that. There was this slow, gradual Hellenization of Judea, just like the other countries, Turkey and Syria and all these other places. I think I told you guys last week that when I was living in LA, there was this huge exhibit in Orange County on the history of Turkey. And they had dioramas and exhibits, and they were very proud of the fact that they had a Hittite period, and then they had the Greek period, all this, Greek culture. And then they talked about the 1900s, the early beginnings of Ataturk, with my grandfather's generation. And so everywhere you go in this time, everything is becoming Hellenized. Now, back to what I said before, the best example I can give you. The British, the Western world does not say, oh, let's have democracy, let's go be nice to the Native Americans. No, they conquered them. They treated them as second-class citizens. And the parallel, that's why I call it cultural imperialism. I didn't make this term up, but oh, look, those colorful natives. Isn't that cute? They have those grass skirts. Oh, lady, put on a top. So now I will say something that is very, very sad. I had a colleague at the prison who was a teacher. She became a chaplain, or they call them Native American spiritual leaders. Remember, in the prison system, we had Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, and the Native Americans did not want to be called chaplains. So she was called a Native American spiritual leader. And she had before that, she had taught in one of the Indian schools. Indian schools, I'm calling them that by that name, in the US and even in Canada, folks, were where children were sent, separated from their parents, to be taught the Anglo ways. You're not, your name is not running tree, or whatever. Your name is Johnny, and they were forbidden to speak their language, and then they were sent back to their homes, maybe eventually. And there was horrible stories, if you follow the news, about children who were killed. And yes, Christina just wrote, children were murdered there. Anyway, it's not exactly the same thing, but the idea of saying you're free to live, but we're taking over your institutions. And so this is one of the first episodes that we know of this. Now, maybe I'm not correct. There were similar things happened, but it's not our subject. In India, the Aryans, not Aryans as in white people, but the Aryans were invading tribes that took over an older culture in India. And, they created the caste system. Dark people, not so good, lighter people, better. And so that the Rajas were so this idea of taking over on top of a culture was relatively new. I mentioned last week, I should jump ahead a little bit. So Alexander dies, I think it was 10 years after these huge invasions, and he's on his deathbed. If you want to watch the movie, was I think Brad Pitt playing him, and they think he died of syphilis or maybe he was bisexual, maybe it was something else, but whatever it is, he's on his deathbed and he says, I leave my kingdom to the best best generals. So they didn't know. So they split the kingdom between Seleucus and Ptolemy, or Seleucus here and Ptolemy there. And there was a third whose name is not relevant, who kept Greece, the Greek area. But the Seleucids, that's what they're called, were the rulers of Syria and everything east. And Judea was sort of in between. So Seleucids, we had Seleucus 1, 2, 3, 4, Seleucus, and Antiochus 1, 2, 3, 4. Antiochus is ruling from Antioch. If you look on a map, Antioch is a real place. It's not far from the capital of Lebanon today. What is the capital? Beirut, yeah. So Antioch was where these guys ruled from. So the Seleucids went back to the old ways of saying, and it's not just we want to rule and we want to convert you, but we need your money. We got to put our people in charge. So they put these, puppet governments on all these different places. And as I said, it was easy because the priestly class, in most cases, were perfectly okay to switch over from one god to the other. Just by contrast, the Ptolemies, Ptolemy 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know the numbers exactly, but the Ptolemies got Egypt. And that's what's interesting, is that in Egypt, in Alexandria, the Jews who moved there, Judeans, if I should say that, who moved to Egypt became the basis on which Hellenization proceeded in a different direction. They lost their connection with Judea. There's even a weird story that for a while they wanted to build a temple there. I mean, a real temple with sacrifice. The difference between a temple and a synagogue, right? A temple, you actually have priesthood and animal sacrifices. It didn't fly. It was in Elephantine, a little area near the Nile River. Anyway, eventually the Alexandrian Jews became very assimilated, yet very knowledgeable because they weren't oppressed. So that was where the Bible was translated into Greek. So there you go. Interesting side note. The Septuagint. Okay, so back to our story. Seleucus 1, 2, 3, 4, Antiochus 1, 2, 3, 4. Antiochus III is sort of like Alexander, the Tsar of Russia. He was a little bit more liberal. And then there was a counter-revolution, and Antiochus IV took over, and there was a story and they were still doing battles, still fighting, all these other nations, and a myth began to form, our story began to circulate in Judea that he was killed in battle. Rejoicing! Everybody starts rejoicing. And then he turns out to have not been killed. And so there was this mini revolution. Meanwhile, also, the Hellenized Jews, I skipped ahead a little bit. Hellenization is, and that's what's so relevant for us. What are we? I'll get to this at the end. What are we? Are we Hellenized Jews? Are we Reform? Are we conservative? Are we not just Orthodox, but how much do we assimilate? What is the difference between assimilation and a culturalization? Native Americans today have managed to not make it, but they managed to live in two cultures. So have Latinos to a large extent, but they kept their uniqueness. And how much uniqueness and how much assimilation, you can understand what I'm talking about. So Hellenization, like I said, proceeded little by little. And there were people in Judea, mostly in the cities, that, I'm sorry, Jessica. Hellenization means Hellen. Hellen is a word for Greek, or Greece. I'm not sure whether it refers to the islands or the main area. No, it has nothing to do with hell at all. I mean, no way. And anyways, it's a Greek word. And it's not to do with the name of the woman, Helene, although it is similar. Perhaps a woman named Helen was honoring the Greeks. So yes, when I was a kid in college, they would call the sororities, the fraternities, the Hellenic League, you know, because they all had Greek names. So all we can understand, the best thing we can understand, as I said, is again, parallels. What language am I speaking? Am I speaking Hebrew or Yiddish? No, I'm speaking English. We have become acculturated. So Greece became the language. Everybody knew it and everybody used it, but Jews continued to speak Hebrew in synagogues as well, or in their own life. All right, so what's interesting then is, as I said, there begins to be three groups, and this is covered in Hellenist Jews. It's covered in Stan Mack. Hellenist Jews, second group, um, Hasidim, or pious pacifists. I wouldn't call them pacifists in the true sense of the word, but and then the third group was moderates, but then eventually that led to the Hasmoneans. Okay, well, okay, so who is Mattathias? What do you guys know about him? Matityahu. Not the rap artist. That's Matisyahu. Mattathias is a priest. I'm answering my own question, but anybody know? He's a priest, but he's not a priest from Jerusalem. I mean, most of the priestly kids in Jerusalem, their children were already going to the gymnasium. They wanted, oh God, this is going to be gross. I'm sorry. They wanted to undo their circumcisions. And so they would do a very painful operation to pull the foreskin back over the glands so that they wouldn't be made fun of by the Greeks and the pagans. As I said, you had to go, if you went to the gymnasium, you went to it in the nude, you wrestled in the nude, you worked out, you went to the sauna, whatever. And so these kids from largely, ironically, the priestly class were the first people to become Hellenized. Now, maybe not Hellenized to the point where they were saying, let's worship the Greek gods. There's the difference. But so I started to say, a Hellenized Jew approaches or sends money to Antiochus, make me the high priest in Jerusalem. And then there's another guy who also wants the job, and they're competing. And neither one of them were really strongly Judaic. They were both Hellenized. When Antiochus was proven not to have died in battle, he reinstated this, and this guy got the job. So that's when the revolution broke out. That's when the rebellion broke out. And as the movie says, it's, it's kind of cute, and the little shepherd gets a bow and arrow, and the woman gets a bow and arrow, and the guy with the little sheep gets his sword out. Hasmonean, so Hasmo, I don't want to make it too complicated for you. Matityahu, Yahu, of the house of Hasmon. Now, the thing is, we mostly call it Maccabees. That's another part of the story. But so he's called a Hasmonean, and what he does is, it's a famous story, and it's in the books of the Maccabees. It's not in the Bible, not in the Torah. A town that you may have heard of in Israel called Modi'in, two eyes, Modi'in, is near Tel Aviv today. It still exists. It's a little city, little kibbutz area. And so again, there's a dynamic here I want you to appreciate of the city folks versus the country folks, right? It's like the American Revolution or the Civil War. So Mattathias, or Matityahu, was from a Kohen background, but not in Jerusalem. So he's not part of that gang. And a Syrian soldier, that's again Syrian Hellenists, not Greeks, but a Syrian soldier or Syrian troop comes to Modi'in and they says, oh, great Matityahu, you are the leader of this community. You should be an example, and you should, he puts an idol in the middle of the town, according to the story. And Matityahu, and then a Jew comes forward, a Judean comes forward and begins to offer or bow down or offer sacrifice to this idol of, I believe, Apollo. And Mattathias kills the Jew and then kills the Syrian soldier. And and this is, again, the story, whether it's totally true or not, is, he grabs his sword and says, anybody who is with Adonai, come with me. And he goes and he leaves town and goes to the mountain. So that's the story. Well, Matityahu has, according to the story, 5 sons, and each one becomes part of this counter-revolution. And it's part of my trivia contest. Who are name the 5 sons of Mattathias? And the 5 sons are Eleazar, Jonathan, Yochanan, two J's, Shimon, and Judah. But I did them out of order. Judah is son number 3. And I have this whole trivia contest thing. Which son died under the elephant? Eleazar. All right, so they, he takes a spear and stabs the elephant, and the man on top, crushes him. So he dies. So what it was, this all lasted, I'm to get more in order here. In 168, this is in your books, 168, we're going back, remember going backwards, BCE, Antiochus pretty much issues the edict saying, no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more wishy-washy, you can be a little bit Hellenist, but you must all become Hellenized. You all must become part of the Greek religion. Because of this anger, and that now this is what's interesting, is the temple is not destroyed. That was by the Romans and earlier by the Babylonians. Instead, what they do is they do the same thing, and they did it everywhere else. They take over the temple, and they turn the temple into a shrine for Zeus. So in 168 BCE, this takes place, and that gives causes the rebellion. And so it's called the Maccabean Rebellion, but it's more properly Hasmonean. Is that making sense, guys? All right, so Hasmoneans, but most kids grew up with Maccabee. Why do we get the term Maccabee? I'm sorry, I got to get into this little trivia. Stephanie, are you there? Stephanie remembers this one too. Judah was a very good warrior, good planner, and he was taller than most of his folks, most people around him. And they say there's a theory that he had a kind of a big forehead that everybody noticed. So they used to call him maybe what we would call lumpy, and he had a hammerhead. That's one theory about hammer. And the other theory that's more popular is they hit like a hammer. Again, I'm making parallels to the American experience. Do you remember during the Revolutionary War, they did not, here come the Greeks, here come the British with their red uniforms, and they're marching, and then Paul Revere and the Raiders, that was the name of a group from the 60s, folks, of a band. But the revolutionaries, the early revolutionaries of the Revolution are attacking guerrilla style. So guerrilla warfare was perhaps new at the time, but they were far, far outnumbered by the Syrian army. So they did what they could. They had these little battles, pretty much the way the movie kind of cutely shows it. People became part of this ragtag army. And one of the stories that, again, behind the story about the miracle of the oil is really the Syrians were not outnumbered, but they were overcommitted. They had this battle and that battle and this. So they said, you know what? we don't need to fight these crazy people. Let's leave them alone. So in 165 BCE, which coincidentally happens to be Kislev, that's the month that we're in now. We just, today, yes, we just started it Sunday. Kislev, or as you know it, December. Okay. So approximately 3 years from the time that Antiochus took over the temple to the retrieving the regaining of the temple. Now, as I said before, it was a ragtag kind of guerrilla warfare style battle. 20 o'clock. It's almost 8 o'clock. And the other thing about this is really interesting is that, like I said, they wouldn't have won if they had confronted the Syrians, but they used this brilliant technique of pot shots. And there was one very decisive battle in a canyon near Jerusalem, where, like the movie was showing a little bit, arrows and stones are being thrown down on these troops that are walking through the canyon. So the Syrians, like I said, the Syrians sort of said, we got enough troubles. Let's leave these people alone. They made a deal. They went back to Antioch, and it was, even though we use the term independence from approximately 165 to 63 BCE, independent, I'll put it in quotes, independent Judea. And everything keeps on trying to guess what I'm saying. Judea, All right, so and this is here. This is in Telushkin. I say it well, but if you want to hear what he says, it's really quite interesting. It says, one of the sadder ironies of Jewish history is that the Maccabees led a successful revolt against King Antiochus's anti-Semitic oppression, see preceding entry on Hellenism, all right, only to turn into oppressors themselves, right? So the revolt begins in 167. He says 167, that's okay. 17 miles northwest of Jerusalem. And he tells the same story from 1 Maccabees, second chapter, and the 5 sons take over the revolt. Mattathias does not get killed in battle; he just dies as an old man. And the stories are quite heroic. One of the stories from that period, or several of the stories, have to do with women. We always, talk about the dudes. There was a woman named Hannah who had 7 sons, and each son, the Syrian tyrant Antiochus gave her a choice. It says, if this son will bow down to this idol, I will let him live. No, and the guy dies. So 7 sons are martyred in front of her eyes, and then she is killed herself. So this story of the Hannah and her 7 sons. The other story that's quite interesting, which is not exactly, we don't know for sure if it's in this period, but it's told as if it is in this period, was the story of Judith. And there was a Greek general named, or Syrian general named Holofernes. And Holofernes invaded a town in the northern Israel, Beit Shean. And again, this is the story. This is how things go. Judith is a widow, kills Holofernes. Holofernes. What does she do? Anybody remember this? This is not in the Bible either. This is in a book of the Apocrypha. The city is being sieged, right, with a wall by the Syrians. Holofernes is the general, and she and her maidservant, she goes with her her help lady, and they go into the Syrian camp, and she presents herself to the general Holofernes, who's not Antiochus, but he's a general, pretty serious dude. And she says, "Let me be your lady, and she's very beautiful. And even though she's a widow, she's a little older, but she's very smart. And so she feeds him salty cheese. Well, today feta cheese, right? It's Greek cheeses. So she give him all these delicacies, and then she says, "You must be thirsty, you poor thing. Have some wine." And again, this is the story. This is the story in the book of Judith. And she gets him drunk, and he falls asleep. She beheads him, and she and her lady friend go back across the lines, hang the head of Holofernes on the walls of the city, and whereupon all the Syrian troops panic, their guy's been killed. And so she won the day. It's two stories about women heroes. The third story about women heroes is maybe a little bit, I mentioned circumcision before. Today, we think of circumcision as, oh, you got a boy, you got to circumcise him. It's, no big deal. The kid might cry a little bit. It was so opposed by the Syrian Hellenized culture. Three things: you couldn't study Torah, you couldn't observe the Sabbath, and aside from you had to worship idols, but circumcision and kashrut too, I should mention, all those things. Who was in charge of circumcision? Who made sure that the boys were circumcised? The women. The women did. And so that it became, and I'll not end, but I'm coming to the conclusion, even though this is only 200 years, we, as a people, we begin to, I don't want to say harden, but firm up. We begin to get smart, get angry, and get uppity, if you want to call it that. We say, damn you tell us to do this, we're going to do the opposite. We will survive, we will fight back, and if we can't fight back physically, we will survive by, being smart. And so I please, hope you're not offended. It used to be, according to most scholars I've read, that circumcision was not as extreme as it is today, or became in this period. It used to be, I remember I mentioned that guys could pull the foreskin, forgive me, ladies and men too. So the rabbis ruled that it had to be even further back. You had to go all the way back to the tip of the glands. So circumcision became the sine qua non of Judaism. You can't, and people come, I was just talking to Herbert today, and he has to go, before he gets to the Beit Din, he has to go to be circumcised because from Latin America. He's willing to do it. I knew another guy who was Russian who was not. And I said, look, I'll go and do your Beit Din anyway. But anyway, several things happen in this period. Like I said, aside from the issue of religious freedom and surviving and fighting back against the Hellenistic culture, we become more sure about what Jewish ritual is. If they're going to tell us to do this, like I said before, we will keep our traditions even better. So circumcision, got to do it. Kashrut, got to do it. So the Hellenized Jews, yes, Christina, there has been a trend of, not a lot of parents, but I know a lot of people in the Bay Area, there has been, and maybe, who knows, maybe if this hadn't happened by today, people might have, it might have become much less common, or maybe might have become optional. I have my own dilemmas as a rabbi, but if somebody says, a parent says to me, I'm sure I'm going to encounter this, I'm leaving this congregation, and if I go to another synagogue is more liberal, there may be plenty of people who say just that. Anyway, another aspect of this is you might find interesting, not so gory. What if you are a guy or your brother dies in battle? What happens to him? And you know this also because of what is taught in some communities in the Muslim culture. If you die as a martyr, what happens to your soul? So it's not quite clear. I mean, there were traditions from India and from the Far East that the soul, that you had an eternal soul, but it was not that common in Judaism. In this period, there were so many martyrs, men and women, so many people who were killed, because of their insisting on remaining observant Jews, that people began to talk about the idea of a reward in heaven. I'm not saying it wasn't around before, but it became much more part of Jewish culture. Isn't that strange? You know, that martyrdom and circumcision and keeping kosher became a large part of our identity because of the interaction with the Greeks or the Syrian, the Hellenized. Now, so I mentioned before that there were, now this is maybe the strange or the good stuff. Well, not good, but I mentioned before that there were Hellenized Jews, and then there were the assimilated, right? And there were people who were Hellenized only to the point where they say, I mean, you know, I just said his name was Mattathias. Well, you know it is Greek. His name wasn't Mattathias, it was Matisyahu. My name isn't Moshe, it's Marty. Or my name isn't Marty, it's Moshe. So they began choosing Greek names. Even the Maccabees began using Greek names. Everybody's speaking Greek. Even the strongly Jewish Jews are speaking Greek. I remember that I mentioned already the Septuagint. So when you watch Handel, the Messiah, you know, Judas Maccabeus, you know, and there's a whole, you know, Handel had a whole opera on this. But one of the things that's really quite interesting, I'll say what I said at the beginning of the class. We don't like the dominant culture, but we still borrow from it. And so we borrow ideas from these Greeks and later from other cultures, but we make them part of our culture as well. The synagogue, the word, we'll get to that next, well, I did talk about a little bit last week. The word synagogue, like synonym, right, is a place that is like the place of worship, and it's agog, it's a place of gathering. So the place of gathering becomes the synagogue. So we become a people of the synagogue, and the temple is still there, but synagogues grow and grow. So what things did we, I could end with this, or we'll all end together. What things did we borrow or take or say that's okay from the Greek culture? What things did we reject? I'll start it off. Logic, drama, telling stories, singing. Not sing. We sang with King David, but maybe the idea of, you know, the kid with the flute playing along with the guy with the lyre. You know, we borrowed wholesale parts of the culture that we liked, but we rejected none of this polytheism stuff. All right. What things did we reject? Anybody? It's easy to do. I can, aside from the idols. Anybody else? Anybody got one? You ever heard the expression, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die? Okay, so that is part of the philosophy. Yeah, public bathhouses. She's right. Public bath, was that a reject or acceptance? Christina, you got to talk, kiddo. There were public bathhouses, but there were Jewish ones. Yeah, rejection. Well, certainly, yes, certainly rejection. And there was a wholesale rejection, I hate to say it, of homosexuality. Even though today we know that there are many gay Jews, and there were even then, but there was a rejection of the Greek way. But that's what I was going to get to. Worship. Huh?
Say the morals.
The morals, right, versus worship of God. Yes, so the eat, drink, and be merry thing was the Epicurean philosophy. Epicureans was a school within Greek philosophy. It just said, you know, enjoy life. Well, we do enjoy life, but we enjoy it in a Jewish way. You know, but yes, so the Greek style, okay, yes, Dan McClellan, the concept of hell was created. And yes, well, you know, that Jessica, that's interesting. You might point that out. It is true. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I send a direct message to Christina because was writing to her? Okay. Oh, all this time I've been writing to everybody and it's been going to Christina. Okay. All right. So I'll say again, Epicureans and versus the Judeans were not Puritans, but they certainly had a different idea of the body. The body was there as a vessel for the soul, not to be glorified and worshipped. And this is where I get into some of the things we have today, concepts of morality. I don't want to dwell on morality because that sounds awfully judgmental. But look, I like going to the gym. I like working out, right? But that whole idea of the guy with the discus, when people got into this whole thing of, for the Greeks and the Hellenized peoples, the body was, you wanted to look like Apollo. You wanted to look like Aphrodite. They were ideals. The gods and goddesses of the Greek culture and later the Roman culture were, strong, swarthy. And so we had to look like beautiful. And so hair was disgusting to them. For Jews, hair was, for men and for women too, even, was this, idea as a part of your body. All right, I don't get into the gory stuff, but generally the idea was we are not on this earth to just eat and drink and have great orgies or something. We're on this earth to do ethical things, and in a sense, we influenced the Greco-Roman world as well. All right, so let's pause. What time we got? Yeah, it's 8:25. Questions, comments, arguments, debates. Come on, guys. Did I say anything to offended anybody by talking about circumcision?
No offensive tonight.
Okay.
How
Yes, Debbie. Yeah.
how did the Greeks, when they put the Torah into Greek,
Yeah.
did they change it much?
Yes. Oh, that's a fantastic question. There's hundreds and hundreds of translation issues, and it wasn't Greeks. It was actually the Jews of Alexandria. But yes, I have studied the Septuagint. I'm not a Greek scholar. I know a lot of my minister colleagues studied it in Greek, but there's all sorts of problems. Here's a great one. Isaiah, that classic statement in Isaiah says, it's what chapter is it? Um, uh, uh, your son shall, what is it? Shall marry a young, oh no, Isaiah, yeah, Achaz goes to Isaiah and says, make a prediction. Tell me that my kingdom will be okay after all, because things are pretty horrible. So he says, there's a woman named that is a Na'ara, which means young woman, right? Young woman, and she shall have I'm typing, a son, and you shall call him counselor, right? Sound like the Messiah? Sound like, for unto us a son is born. I sang Handel. So the Septuagint translates Na'ara, which means, again, I'm being too graphic. A woman could have a child when she was 14. So Na'ara meant young woman of, or Na'ar meant young strapping young lad or young woman, a woman of birth age 13, 14, 15 years old. So he says, you, Achaz, are going to have a wife or woman, a concubine, and she shall have a son, and he shall be the prince of Isaiah 53. Yes, Jessica. And so that is translated, Na'ara is translated as Parthenos, which means, and Parthenos means also something like a young woman, but it's translated into the Latin as virgin. Oh, of course, Isaiah 53. It's predicting the birth of Jesus. Sorry, folks, it's not. So that's a great example of, regardless of whether Jesus was real or thought of himself as a Messiah, that particular example from the Septuagint translation was misused. So yes, Debbie, there's a number of them. I can't think of others off the top of my head because I studied it so long ago. And the other thing that I want to come back to, dang, that's how they got it. Yes, Christina. Well, look, I don't know the Mary story that well, but Mary has this baby and Joseph adopts the baby. We'll get into this in 2 weeks or maybe next week. And next week we'll do as much as we can on the Christian Jewish split. Yes. But Jesus grows up thinking he's a mamzer, which does not mean bastard, but it means a child with no legitimate father. And so he starts thinking, maybe God is my father. So there's another theory about that. In any event, I don't even understand how this whole thing with virgin birth could have even been a part of the culture, except it was part of the Greek and Roman myths, right? Gods were always coming to Earth to have sex with humans. Boy, there's a lot of sex tonight. I'm sorry. They were always coming to Earth to have intercourse with humans and give birth to divine babies. Hercules, divine, semi god. Jews had heroes, but we never had turned them into gods. Samson, David, and so on. Yeah, thanks a lot, Zeus. That's good. Anyway, I want to close with this idea. This is really classic. And I say in my teachings in the yeah. Oh yeah, thank you, Taylor. Isolation or assimilation or accommodation. Or another word for accommodation is acculturation. So American Jews and in general Jews in the Western world have learned to survive in this milieu that we're in. And there's an interesting analysis about modern synagogues. Sure, synagogues existed. Well, what was a synagogue? It was a little house. You'd go and you have the service and you have a little nash, have some schnapps, and then bye-bye. Or maybe you need to sleep there. Somebody needed to crash in a synagogue. So it became a place of socialization, but not like here. I mean, look at our synagogue. Look at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. Look at the large synagogues in New York. They were not, I don't want to say imitating, but we created buildings that were like the churches. So in some sense, the synagogue in America has been a vessel for acculturation, not assimilation, right? Unless you're going to have shrimp at the bar mitzvah reception, then it is a bit assimilated, I guess. But another great example of this is they had YMCA's, so we started JCCs. If they're going to have theirs, we're going to have ours, right? They had fraternities and sororities that Jews couldn't join, so we started B'nai B'rith. Anyway, the classic question, and I'm over time, the classic question that we used to ask kids in high school, as I said a couple of weeks ago, Sammy, okay, Sam, I'm sorry, but Sammy's a nice Jewish name. Sammy, I could call him, whatever, I'll call him Isaac, but okay. But Isaac is really, but Sammy's a good Jewish name, but you pass either way. All right. So Sammy is with his buddies and they say, we're all going to the football game. What are you laughing? Emily's laughing. Does this really happen to you? Maybe we're going to the football game Friday night. And Sammy says, I got to have Shabbos with my family, or I'm actually supposed to help the rabbi at the synagogue. So what did Sammy do? He isolated, or he chose to. Isaac is Sam's middle name. That was really funny. I wasn't. I told you, man. I'm just telepathic. I like Yitzchak. All right. So I can't say Moshe, but I went through this. I'm sure everybody that grew up Jewish, I know that Debbie probably did. Um, and you could have gone through something like this as a non-Jewish kid too. Choose, I mean, anybody could. And the example that I often give is oil and water versus um, uh, food coloring and water, right? What happens when you put food coloring in the water? It changes the color of the water. So American Jews, I mean, I'm not being glib here. I'm not just trying to paint it with a big paintbrush. We, like the Italians and the Chinese and the Irish before us, have brought these things to America, like Metro Golden Mayer, the movie industry, lox and cream cheese, Yiddish expressions. Oh, he's a big maven in Hollywood. Yiddish terms. I mean, maybe you don't hear these things in Wyoming, but you certainly do in LA and New York. Anyway, there's a sense that it goes both ways. We can assimilate, we can acculturate, or we can isolate. What's a good example of isolation? Doesn't have to be extreme.
Living in Oklahoma.
Okay, but I'm talking about Jews. Right, good.
Yeah, Jews in Oklahoma.
Oh, Jews in Oklahoma keep to themselves, Debbie? Is there really like, don't marry yeah?
It's not something you
Yeah.
broadcast. You sort of
Oh.
because it's a very different culture in Oklahoma than
Right.
any place else.
Interesting. Huh.
You know, it's
Yeah, I hear you.
probably like the old people in the South
Yep.
have to reassimilate.
Well, thank you.
Oklahoma
Yeah.
hasn't, you know, sort of like what Clinton said, they're got their Bibles, their guns, and their religion,
Yeah.
and they don't like to
Uh-huh.
say that you're. It's hard to say that you're not part of the religion, and down south you have to be a Southern Baptist.
Yep. All right. Well, the example, that's great. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, you're right. That Jews who live in faraway areas, or even in Cheyenne, but especially if you live in Nova Scotia or places like that. But what I was thinking of that we have today is maybe you don't know, Satmar is even more strict than Chabad. The Amish and the Pennsylvania Dutch, that whole idea of don't even let the modern world into your life. I think the Amish probably know how to use the internet, but they wouldn't allow their children to. Chabad is another example of getting smart using the internet, using all the tools of modernity. But there's this idea that we use it to keep ourselves apart. That's great, Debbie. Thinking about places like that. So I just leave you with this a question: are American Jews Hellenized? Is it a similar version of it, or are we somewhere in between? And this was me. This was my story because of my going to Israel and studying Jewish studies at UCLA, and Yiddish and Hebrew was all part of my becoming a part of the of my people. Okay, so we did not cover this. I'll just tell you real briefly, but we'll get into it next week and coming weeks. Why did this 7-branch menorah, we're over time, why did the 7-branch menorah become 8 branches of, I suppose I could switch this around to be, we've been equal, but I'm going to switch. Oh, viewers view, speaker. Am I big now or no? Okay, where's speaker? Stephanie is there. Oh, Stephanie is the leader. That's why. All right, never mind. View multi-speaker. Okay. Anyway, it has to do with the Romans, and we'll get to that next week. Stephanie, you're huge now.
I am sorry.
I don't know. I can't see. I can't win. All right. So when the Romans destroyed this temple in 70 CE, they took away the seven branch menorah that we saw in the movie. And then the Jews started lighting. Somebody's breathing into their mic. Turn your mute on. Thank you. And so we said, oh no, we're not lighting this patriotic menorah. That would be resistance. We have this tiny little thing that we light in our homes. And then also 8 days of the miracle of the oil. So that's why this is technically called a Chanukiah, a form of menorah. All right, no Hanukkah songs tonight. We'll save that for next time. And full screen, and can you all see each other? Let's see if I can. Okay, gallery. There we are. Did I a little evaluation? Did I overtalk? Did I drive you guys crazy? I taught you not too much. Okay. Next week I propose. Oh, I got one more thing, but I'll tell you. But it just hi, they're doing. It's Devin suddenly appearing out of a cloud, with a cloud behind him. I have an idea. I think I told Sammy Isaac about this, and yesterday when we were talking with Emily. I would like to do. We did this last year. I would like in the next semester for everybody to choose a topic of their liking. You need to kind of run it by me so I can see if it's practical. It could be a topic on, let's say, Jewish women, a specific Jewish woman, biography, LGBTQ issues, sexuality, as long as it's, pleasant and nice. Clarence last year in our class, right? Devin did a whole report on Black people in the military, and because he was part of that community as well. And your beloved Jamie did an incredible report on the Holocaust. So it's not. Don't want to call it a term paper. Call it more like my oral report. So pick something that is doable, that you can research in one of the books, Wiki, My Jewish Learning, Safaria, something that you want, Jewish vegetarianism, Jews who are vegetarians, why, this kind of thing, and make it exciting for the class. It could be on a holiday, but we're going to be covering those. So the second thing I want to say, so that's thinking about that. Well, I'll say more about it, and we have 2 more weeks. So next week, the Jewish Christian split, and the 17th is what do you call it? Potluck. We could meet at the synagogue if the weather's good. We could meet at one of your homes. We could maybe meet at my house. I don't mind. Or we could also do, kind of wrapping up this period. And I'd rather, instead of me talking, I'd rather you guys talk. What happened in the Greek and Roman period that changed American Jewish life? Oh, you know what? Another great topic. Pick a topic on Jewish law that is exciting to you, and you don't have to be a scholar. You can look it up in My Jewish Learning or Safaria. And this guy, these two become experts on kashrut. Emily and Sam, they're koshering their house. I'm proud to tell you. So you could talk about anything, but make it something that would be interesting to the class. Devin, got a comment on this, maybe? From last year?
Nothing other than everyone picked a lot of great topics.
Yeah,
It was really educational. And no, I didn't actually do the report you thought I did. That was Clarence. I just helped Jamie with hers.
No, I know. Clarence, did I say you? I said
But you
Clarence.
started out with you said Clarence first, and you said me.
Oh, no. Okay. No, you got credit for your wife's incredible report because
Right, I piggybacked off her, not off Clarence.
Okay, but Clarence was
awesome
by the whole thing.
Mhm.
I think Rick may have done a report too. I don't remember. So it's not like a requirement. I mean, it's a requirement. It's more like to keep your interest and your participants in this journey. All right. So, but next week, I say, without us criticizing or getting into polemics, we will get into the best we can some of the issues between the Jewish Christian split. Yes. What? Christina? Yes, on head coverings. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, head coverings for women and men. Yeah, sure. That sounds like an interesting topic. And you know how they evolved. So she just came up with one. All right, guys. Bless you all. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I'll see you all next week. I am leading. Oh, Friday. Here she is, Christina.
Here's Chris. He's gonna say hi.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing, sir?
Good.
Cardiac climber. Oh, wow. Wait,
Oh,
are
it's for my son. It's a fundraiser for
Cool.
cardiac surgeries in Colorado and stuff.
Okay, cool. So I'm leading services this Friday night, next Friday night, and the third Friday night. But on the 14th, I'm leading Sabbat morning. It's not going to be a service, but Torah study. And we're going to conclude the thrilling story of Jacob and Esau. This is really kind of powerful stuff. All right. Thank you all. Christina, keep on coming back. Jessica, keep coming back. I always love to see new people. Oh, yes, please do. Yes. Bring the kids if you want to, Christina. All right. Blessing, Shabbat Shalom, or whatever you want to call it. Well, it's mid week, Shavuot Tov. All right. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night,
And
Bye.
Brenda. Thank you.
recording will come along. All right.